I gathered 7 days of data, and I built a strategy on 7 days of data. I was like, let's go. And then the 8 data came in. I was like, oh no.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Quantopian show. I have a great guest today that I've really been looking forward to talking with, and we've gotten to know each other over the years. So I'm really excited to have him tell his story for the Quantopian audience. My guest is Jared Broad from Quant Connect. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you, John. It has been a decade. Yeah.
Yes. A decade of many different types of relationships that we've had over the years.
Exactly.
The current phase is my favorite. It's been really great to get to know you a little bit better and to work together on some things. And I'm really excited to have you here today. And I want to thank you for being a supporter of the Quantopian newsletter. It's been great to have your sponsorship. And like I said, I really enjoyed getting to talk to you about your business and how you're growing it. And I wanted to ask just at the top here, if we could kind of go way back to the beginning, because I think the origin story for Quant Connect is a great story. You know, it's like sort of a international adventure. We talked a long time ago about your motivations for starting Quant Connect. And I just think entrepreneurs are special people because they have these deep motivations, and you're definitely cut from that cloth. So I'd love it if you could just tell us the story of the very beginning, where you were, why you started, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, I've always had a fascination for the markets. Even when I was like 16, I was scanning. I'm Kiwi. I'm from New Zealand. I've always been a geek. I had like an Amiga 500 and was programming BASIC back in the day. And then scanning the New Zealand newspaper for like penny stocks and trading and such. But I basically was doing humanitarian work years and years later, and pretty bored. So I started to get into some trading and following the US markets.
Can you linger on the humanitarian work? That's an interesting sidebar that I don't think I knew.
The 2-second version is I finished biomedical engineering. I worked for a year doing consulting. I sold everything I owned and got into a cargo ship and worked as an electrician.
Wow.
I left New Zealand on the cargo ship. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life yet. So I was just like, my net worth was zero, but I had no debt. Like I had paid all.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I was gonna say zero's not that bad these days. That's
right. So yeah, it was free for me. I was like, I just want to be free and go and explore the world and see. And I got off in Asia and backpacked around, and I was living off the earnings from the boat, working as the electrician. And
did you know how to be an electrician when you got on the boat?
Yeah, like the childhood geekiness.
Okay, nice.
I was originally into like electronics and computers and
cool,
weird stuff. Yeah.
And so you were like fixing stuff on the boat as you were. I don't know. Do we call it a boat? Am I supposed to say ship? And it's a ship.
Probably ship.
Yeah. Boat, like not a rowboat, a ship, cargo ship.
Correct.
That's amazing. I feel like that's some high stakes debugging that you signed up for.
It's like replacing light bulbs.
Okay.
Running cable. It was relatively simple.
Okay. So then you were backpacking throughout Asia?
Yeah. Just taking some time and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had always wanted to try and do humanitarian-esque projects, like in college, like almost everybody in college, like pretty left, right? So I was thinking, okay, maybe it's something in the industry. And at the time I was in Wuhan. It's like a city of 10 or 20 million people in China.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But and it was right next to Myanmar and Burma, and they just had a major tropical cyclone go through. So I thought, oh, okay, so I'll just go in and start volunteering, see where it takes me.
So did you have any idea how to volunteer in a crisis like that? Like, how did you just sort of went there and started to figure it out? Like, what did you literally do when you landed in Myanmar?
Yeah, even getting in was difficult. They weren't giving out visas. So the first exchange embassy that I went to, I said, "Hey, I'm trying to go in and volunteer," and they said no. So I had to travel like a few hundred kilometers to the next embassy, and I put a camera around my neck and a Hawaiian shirt, and I went up to the embassy and I said, "Hey, I want to be a tourist." And they said, "Yes, here's your visa. Go ahead."
Put on the Donald Duck tourist uniform and went to the embassy. That's awesome. That's amazing. And then did you find like an organization afterwards to try to help out?
Yeah, so it was like a 30-day visa, and I just hit the ground and just I went to everywhere I could find, and they all said no. Just every NGO. I was just this newbie who had no idea how humanitarian works, so they said no, of course, like liabilities and this stranger. Yeah. But eventually,
actual life and death situation, you know.
Yeah, right. we don't need this tourist. So, but I found like a Buddhist church, and they didn't care, and they took me in, and they just like it was literally like carrying sacks of rice, like, kind of stuff.
And it's just in my mind, I feel like you're like walking door to door, asking people if you can help. Is that
pretty much? Yeah,
it's amazing.
The NGOs all hung out in the major hotel of Gone, and so it was pretty easy to find everyone in the network and find my way around. But all of them said no. But at each one, I was like, "Hey, is there anyone else I should talk to?" And eventually, I went to the local organizations, like the ones who were there before the cyclone hit. They were much more receptive to somebody chipping in and helping out.
So. That's amazing. I feel like, do you feel like that reflects your relationship with risk? Like you're taking all kinds of risks by doing this, and like telling the story now like sounds like very cheerfully so, but there's so many parts of that sound a lot like starting a business. You have to just get oriented and be willing to meet and talk to people that you don't know and ask people if for various things, right? Can I work here? Can I stay here? Can you please pay me for what I'm doing? Do you feel like that was important for you as an entrepreneur? Is that like a big formative experience?
Yeah, I was very lucky. It was after my first year of working in New Zealand. I happened to read a couple of books, like 2 or 3 books back to back over a Christmas period that basically completely changed the way I look at life. But one of them was, it's really weird, and it's going to sound super like hacky and whatever, but it was, so there was the Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy. Actually, I don't know that book.
I forgot the guy's name, but he's famous. Paul Coelho, I think maybe.
Okay.
And then Conversations with God. And this was the one that defined my relationship with risk. It was Days of War and Nights of Love. And it was the weirdest collection of letters from like activists and like very out there people. But it was basically like, you've got both your arms, you're okay. Limbs have you lost today? Right. Like as long as you're not actively losing body parts, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, just getting you like reoriented on the full spectrum of humans, right?
Right. And then it was the Celestine Prophecy and The Alchemist. Sorry, that was it. That was the Paul Coelho one.
All right, so you had like an intense period of like reading and thinking and searching.
Yeah. And then just left New Zealand, got on a cargo ship, and just was like, okay, like let's like live this adventure of life and see where we're at.
And it has just continued.
Yeah.
So actually, did you ever go back to New Zealand to live, or did you continue
to live? No. Okay. I visited family and such, but no, it was I did a year in Myanmar, I met my boss and I,
Yeah.
the organization we were working for, and we formed an NGO startup. We were helping humanitarian organizations execute their projects.
Okay.
He was an Argentinian guy, and they're fiery and passionate, and Kiwis are very blunt. They're kind of like New Yorkers. So we were working in a German organization who, there's a stereotype that's true. They're just the stricklers for the rules. And we were both like fish out of water in that company. So we left and we made our own startup, and we just focused on like executing humanitarian work really quickly and efficiently.
Okay. Very cool. And how long did you do that?
That was about a year and a half, through half dozen different disasters like Haiti and like a bunch of other ones. Pakistan had a major flood, and we were a good team.
That's amazing. And how did that phase come to a close? Like, what was the conclusion of your international humanitarian adventure?
I think part of it was a frustration with how much of humanitarian work was tied up by funding. And so it was like all these awesome projects were just not going ahead because of money. And money would go somewhere like a more PC country or whatever, because the government was bad, so they couldn't help the people in the country.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So there was just it rekindled my interest in the markets and like thinking of capital markets again.
Okay. Because you kind of like root cause some of this back to finance.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a daydream, but I wanted to try and raise capital in the markets to fund humanitarian work.
Okay.
And blur the lines between like C Corps and humanitarian work somehow.
Yeah.
And you see like nice company, and you see every major corporation these days is doing something, which is pretty cool. But yeah, eventually just started trading, just because I was interested in it and was trying to find a way to support these humanitarian projects, and was not good.
So tell us more. What do you mean it was not good? Didn't work, or?
Yeah, I was just too emotional.
Oh, I see. Oh, you were like speculating.
Yeah, speculative day trading.
Okay.
The same pathway that everybody goes down.
Yeah.
Just like seeing the potential, but
yeah. So did you perceive the markets as like a data problem at that point in your life, or like how did you think of the markets when you first started trading?
I think I did a lot of data work in my degree, and biomedical is all signal processing and
yeah, a lot of model building, right?
Yeah, model building, mathematical methods. So I had a good foundation, but I totally approached it as a trader. I was just going as a trader, but that stuff was always in the back burner. I was like, it was only when it maybe lost like 5 or 10%.
But it felt horrible.
Yeah, it felt bad. So that's when I was like, oh, maybe I can take all these techniques that I know and try and apply them here.
So that's really interesting. Was there an example that you were following? Like, did you hear about quantitative methods, or was it just kind of obvious to you that you could use the techniques that you learned in biomedical in the markets? Because that experience, I think a lot of your current customers have this experience of kind of like that realization or that curiosity. So did you literally have the same epiphany?
I think this was 2009 or 10. And back then it wasn't quite as popular. Quantitative finance. Like I think I had to Google that name to try and come up with a company name. Like I didn't know about it. But there was Ninja Trader, and there was like
it was a little bit, right?
A little like TradeStation had easy language, and there was scripts around. So that was kind of the background I had. But I didn't like any of them because they were all very inflexible and constrained and all proprietary. And I was like, okay, let's just write something. So I started building my own foundation, my own framework.
Was it a company at that point, or were you still, sort of like humanitarian by day, trader by night? Is that what was happening?
Yeah, pretty the latter. Yeah. So
Okay.
I was the last project that I did was in Chile. The Chile had a major earthquake 2009, 2010. And
Okay.
so we went down there and we built about 500 homes with
Wow.
the NGO startup thing. So that was my day. And
Yeah.
then at night, it was the just researching and trading and starting that interest. And it just transitioned. It was just like, I'm really enjoying this. So my partner and I went different ways, and he's still going strong. And yeah.
Amazing. Are you still in touch with your partner from the NGO days?
Yeah, we still keep in touch. It's been 14 years though.
Yeah.
It's been a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
2010 to 2011, 12. It was like me, I had some savings from that company. So
Yeah.
it was like an exit, but it was just like we had projects and we did revenue. And
Yeah. So you could live. You were able to live.
and Chile is pretty cheap, like relatively cheap.
Mhm.
So I had like it was $600 a month, and I had a gorgeous like 2-story apartment on the 23rd floor of a building. It's like this 180 view of Santiago and the mountains, and
Amazing.
my computer there, and I was like hacking away like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And you were solo, just you cranking it out.
Just solo.
That's a great phase, isn't it? So such a pure existence.
Yeah, yeah. And like getting up, trading the markets,
Mhm.
hacking all afternoon, improving the platform and iterating. And
So at that point, was it still you were building tools for yourself, like you were just making the platform for your own strategies to trade on the daily, and you were trading US markets?
no, I started with Australian markets, and
So great.
yeah, like there was one API broker in Australia, so I was like gathering data.
Perfect.
And like my first mistakes were like I gathered 7 days of data, and I built a strategy on 7 days of data. I was like, let's go. And then the 8th data came in. I was like, oh no. So
what was that first strategy? Do you remember what the very first strategy was that you coded up?
buy low, sell high for sure. No, it's standard deviation something. And I totally like cherry picked the standard deviations that I was looking for, and yeah, it made infinite profit on those 7 days. And I was just like, let's just run this for one day.
This is gonna be so easy. I don't know why it's so difficult.
Yeah, yeah. But I think what I learned was so it was like a year of that, of building, and then a year of live trading, all on savings, all in the Chile apartment. It was like 2 full-time years, 12 hours, 6, 7 days a week.
What was like your social experience like at that time? Like, were you like wake up, get to your terminal, I guess trade first because you're offset, right? Australia was probably closing when you were getting up.
No, I gave up on Australia really quick.
Okay.
Australia, US, yeah, US and Interactive Brokers, they still have maybe Gateway and all the same tech.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And you got all that working, but like, did you see other people? Were you doing anything besides coding and trading?
No, not for like 6 months. But after a while, I went totally crazy. So I started coding in cafes, even though I had a great setup at home.
Yeah.
And, I started the buildings that we were in. There were like maybe 5% international people living in the building, and there were like 3 24-story buildings. So there was like 5,000 people living in this complex. And so we started up this Whiskey Wednesday event on the roof.
Nice.
And I started off just like 3, 4 guys, and then it turned into like 40 or 50 people
Awesome.
every Wednesday. And I was like 27. It was just it was amazing. Yeah. So my social outing every Wednesday, and yeah, It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so important. What about like physical movement? Were you like getting outside and exercising and stuff like that to keep? Because 2 years is a long time to sustain that level of effort. I don't know if our listeners appreciate like how hard it is to. If you think about like concentrating on a task for 8 straight hours, that's pretty difficult. But I think what you're describing is like a shared experience for a lot of people starting companies where you have a level of concentration that's sustained for like years. And I don't know, did you know that that's what you were getting into, or did you like 6 months in, you're like, whoa, man, I've been cranking this for like 7 days a week for 6 months. I should like build a routine and see people and I should tell you, like, how did it unfold for you?
I always did. There was a gym in the building, so that was
Okay.
so
Yeah.
good. Um, and I was also in my sort of mid-20s, so
Yeah.
it was fit no matter what I did, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then even though if I was working like 12 hours a day, I only needed like 6, 7 hours sleep in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
it was a lot easier.
It's a very useful decade, the 20s.
Yeah, I know. I can't do that now.
Right. Yeah, for me, I always needed like a lot of I think what I actually need in order to be able to do that level of effort over a long period of time is almost like meditation time, but the way that I've learned that I can get that is by running and like doing kind of like long, very slow, but long runs a couple times a week. So I think sustaining effort is like a big part of building anything, and keeping yourself healthy is important, right?
How are your knees?
So they're totally fine. Knock wood. One of the things I've learned is I have to manage my weight if I'm going to run. So if I want to run, I have like a target weight I need to be under, because if I run when I'm over that weight, then bad things happen. So I'm not running a lot right now. I'm actually midway in my process to get back to running.
Yeah,
because I can do it again.
I love running too, and then I hurt my knees, and now I have to cycle. So
yeah,
cycling's great too.
Cycling is great because you can go such distances. It's like such a phenomenal experience to be able to cover like 50 miles in a single ride. You really see a lot, right, on a bike.
I'm not cycling 50 miles.
or whatever, like a regular ride, you can go 10 or 15 miles. It's not that big a deal.
Right.
And then if you have like a weekend, you can do something bigger.
It also helps, like, I don't know about you, but I didn't have kids in my 20s, so
we started having kids when I was 30, and yeah, that definitely changes things, changes everything. So when did let's actually go back to the beginning of Quant Connect. So for 2 years, was it Quant Connect, or was it Jared building his machine for trading stocks?
Yeah, it had a janky name. It was called Stock Track.
Stock Track. Yeah, I like that name. That's not bad. You still have that domain? You should bring. Yeah.
It's Stock Track, and it so it was we did live trading. I lost. I had some amazing strategies, some bad ones. I learned about risk control and about diversification the hard way, all sorts of things the hard way. But eventually there was a decent strategy, and I was like, okay, all strategies die. Do I want to make another strategy or two? And I literally spent 2 years building all this infrastructure. And there was this program that just started up in Chile called Startup Chile. And they were giving you $40,000, which was a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
And
cost of living is like $600.
Yeah, right. And salaries are like
4 years of runway.
right. So I applied and was rejected a few times, but eventually we got accepted, and Stock Track turned into Quant Connect 2012. And
12, okay. Can you talk like a little bit more on this framing you had, where you spent 2 years building infrastructure and developing strategies. You had one that's working. And then you said something that I find fascinating about all investing and quant investing is all strategies die. Maybe you can explain why that's true, and then tell us, how you figured that out, and how it led you to go into the Quant Connect model.
I suppose over the year that I was live trading, we had one strategy that was like a turtle. It was me. It was me. I had a strategy that was so you said,
unless you're talking to a volleyball.
Everything's we these days, but no, I had a turtle trading strategy, and it was like 2% loss per trade was the turtle strategy, and it was a turtle martingale strategy. So it was like,
oh wow, okay,
lost, it doubled down the other way and doubled down, and that in backtest worked fantastically, and live trading was working fantastically, and then it was trading Apple stock, and so it was in and out within like 5 minutes and done for the day, and then Steve Jobs announced that he had cancer.
Oh wow, okay.
That Japan was hit by a tropical cyclone, or the nuclear reactor in Japan.
Oh, Fukushima, yeah.
Fukushima heated up, and that caused a lot of volatility across things. And then also the US got a credit downgrade from like AA++ to AAA, whatever. And all of a sudden the regime shifted, and Apple started going down for a considerable period of time, and everything went wonky, and everything just exploded and stopped working, and I lost like 9% in a single day. It was like a massive and so then I just pivoted to like, okay, let's run multiple strategies, hyper risk controlled, different styles, up and down, one long, one short, that just diversified a lot. And was basically like, this regime will always change. There will always be a new volatility. There will always be a new event.
That's the best and worst thing about the markets.
Yes. And it's an awesome challenge, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, it's also what makes the markets like so amazing to follow. Everything matters, and it's there's always going to be a change. There's always winners. There's always losers. It's like fascinating story to follow. So okay, so you had this experience with it was 2012 when all these things happened, right? And that led you to think about diversification. So then you diversified your strategies. Was that when you said, okay, I want to actually be the person making the platform for other people to build strategies? Like, what was that leap?
Yeah, it was. So the turtle one was making like 100% returns a year until it died. And the diversified one was like only 12 or 13%. And I was like, okay, trustworthy and stable, but it too will die. But I had time. So I used that time to think, okay, let's go and find investors. And so I went to all the high net worth people in Chile, and I was like, hey, I've got this strategy, can you fund it? And I learned about a new part of the business, the fundraising and capital raising part, and what they demand of you, and just how much it sucked. It sucked. So it was just like, go build infinite track record.
Right.
No matter how much track record you have, it's never
enough. Right.
Yeah, right. And there's just so many different things. But
and did you not like the process of going out and like trying to sell the strategy? Because some people love that. Some people love to go and describe the strategy and get people excited about it and raise money. But that was apparently not fun.
No, not for me. So I now, and I don't know when I heard this saying, but I heard sometime that it was like a fund is like 80% sales and 20% strategy. And in some of these large funds, they might have 20 quants and 80 salespeople, just as a ratio for like the effort that's going on. It's like all capital raising, and it doesn't even matter the fund's performance a lot of the times. Like, they're just raising capital. I couldn't stomach that. So that didn't sound like fun.
And looking back now, like for me and for everybody listening, it's like a kind of obvious move to then build a platform. But at the time, like, how did you see that as the opportunity?
Yeah, so there was no way that an individual could repeat that effort with all that time and all the capital that they had to put up to try and build the platform. And the existing like scripting platforms didn't feel very open or flexible, or they could use the current machine learning techniques or packages that were available. So I felt like there was an opportunity for Quant Connect to build this and host this and be, in my mind, I thought I was the only one in the world, be the only like quant platform in the world. And at the time, it was like 2010, 2011. I feel like the collective world had just gone through that financial crisis.
Yeah.
And then the bailout of the banks.
Yeah.
And it was like this awakening to self-empowered finance, that they were putting up those giant inflatable rats out in front of banks.
Yes.
Right. And there was the Occupy Wall Street movement was all around. And
yes.
Like, we can give you those tools. You don't need to like say take down the banks. Why don't we just make them available to everyone? So it's an equal platform.
Yeah.
So that was our first pitch. It was basically like
I think it's just like such a great response to because there was a lot of social upheaval at that time. Exactly what you're describing, like people kind of feeling like the whole system was unfair because of the structure, and then I think the bailouts really pushed people over the edge in terms of like what kind of system are we running here. And I love that your response was to build something. You know, it's just like such like an optimistic, hopeful response to that situation. So I love that part of the story. Was it like, was it always obvious to you that open source was the way to build your platform? Because, you know, again, I think today, although I'd actually love to hear your opinion about today, if you think this is sort of like the standard approach, but I think back in 2011, it was like a pretty edgy idea that you would have a service where the source code for that service was totally transparently open and free.
yeah.
So how did you land on that? Was it like intuitive? Was it deliberate? You know, what tell us about that decision?
No, actually, you pioneered the open source thing. We for the first 2 years or so, like 2012 to 2013, 2014, I was a little hesitant.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I guess you just spent 2 years of your life creating your system. Is that you had like an attachment? You were actually tell us about your hesitation. It's like an interesting turning point.
I think the movie or the TV show Hackers, I can't remember where I heard this from, but it was like information should be free.
Yes.
And the flip side of that, I think, is that people should pay or will pay for convenience. The information's there. Go ahead. All the source code's there. You can do whatever you want, but we will make it like 3 clicks, and you'll have to give us some money for that service.
Yeah.
So it's like we can get the best of both ethos.
Yeah.
If you value your time, you can use Quant Connect and use our cloud service. But like we can still embrace this open information. But in 2012, I was terrified that it was our core IP and that someone would just copy it and not use our cloud.
And like, what have you learned about that since, is you know, the decision to open it? So then, you know, I do think then and still now, like open sourcing your IP, there is risk to it, right? It's not nothing's like certain. But having done it, and you know, you've run the business now for must be, you know, it's like 12 years. What have you learned about open source and how it fits into your business?
It's a balancing act. We open source roughly a third or a half of the code we write, and we are running a filter on the code we open source, and it's is this something that is basically to make a cloud quant platform, or is this to enable an individual or a startup hedge fund? So it's to enable those people who are building quant trading operations. Will open source it generally, and what I learned basically is that people are busy, and they would rather just pay for convenience than trying to read it.
People will pay for convenience in all sorts of ways. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
They'll sacrifice their privacy. They'll sacrifice their, money, sometimes even time in order to make things convenient for themselves. It's like a very powerful observation about consumer behavior. And how do you, like when you say we'll evaluate a piece of code, how does that work? Is that like you read the code yourself and you make a decision, or is it a cultural thing at Quant Connect now that people have a feel for it? Is it like formal, informal? How's that? How it seems like a very important decision for everything you build.
Yeah. Most of our operations are cultural. We need
Yeah.
to. So it's mostly just word of mouth in the team, and
Yeah.
they'll come to me with like, we think we should close source this or open source this. Yes, no, and I'll agree or disagree. That's about it. So by now it's like most brokerages that we build are open sourced. There's all the data connectors we build.
Yep. Yep.
And then the kernel, the lean engine that pulls it all together, that's completely open source too.
Yep.
But it's a challenging one because it's a niche market.
Right.
Like it's a big industry, but there's still only thousands of players in the industry.
It is. That's like a really, I think, important observation about making software for this industry, where it's like in terms of the assets under management, the dollars traded, the revenue generated, it's massive. But in terms of number of firms, it's really small.
Right.
I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 hedge funds anyway, globally. And that seems like that number's dwindling.
Right. 5,000 or 6,000 hedge funds, and then in the retail and then the individual trading space, people quote like 1 million retail traders in the US, but then those retail traders that are interested or able to do trading is like 1%, 2%, 3% kind of right. So yes, it's pretty niche, and we need to find ways to make it a sustainable business so that we can continue to serve this industry. So we've been looking into like mixed licenses. We did a bunch of research about a year ago into like maybe we publish the brokerages under a license, so that if you're an individual, you can use it completely open source, but if you're a hedge fund, it's commercial license, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because the commercial entities are more interested in security, reliability, and continuity. So if one Connect goes out of business, they want to know that the code's there, they can continue their business. So they don't care about paying $50 for a brokerage connection or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's key to those segments you're describing have different needs, and they have different benefits that they're getting from the software. So it does make sense to have some differential pricing. Do you have a preference? Not to put you in a tough question here, but so you have these very different segments that you're serving. Is there one or the other that is your passion?
The passion is the individuals. The business is roughly 50-50 at the moment, in terms of revenues, but we have clung to serving the individuals and keeping our pricing scalable so the individuals can access it against like investor pressure. Because we started this to make Quant accessible, and that's where our souls are. So if we sell out that, it's not what we want to do. So,
all right, I love that commitment. And how do you measure yourself in terms of, how do you measure Quant Connect in terms of succeeding in that mission? What does success look like, and where are you in the journey to, democratizing access to quant finance?
That's a really hard question. I enjoy the day-to-day challenges, and I really love hearing the feedback from the community.
Yeah.
So where are we is it's like a line with no end.
Right.
So we're always at the start, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and that's okay because I'm loving every single day.
Right.
We still get a lot of critical feedback, and we're busting our ass to try and improve it and make it better. And I suppose the day when it's achieved.
When the tickets go zero, you'll know. Do you find, I always found it amazing that individual people trading their own account, usually in their spare time, are like infinitely more critical and infinitely more insightful and demanding as users of your software. Like, I always blew my mind that people who are professionally trading, do you experience the same thing, that like the individuals are like way more demanding?
Yes, very demanding.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe the comparison to professional software is much better. Like,
Yeah, like consumer software. Yeah, that's actually a really good insight.
professionally, they have Excel,
Right.
and compared to Excel is a leap and a bound. But people get used to high quality software in the consumer space, and I think they just don't mind sharing their opinion too, and it's a good thing. We
That's great.
appreciate,
Yeah.
we love hearing the feedback.
I guess that's the other thing, is you've created a culture in your community where, right, community knows you want the feedback, and so they give you a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Your community is, I think, like a really impressive part of the business, and it's growing really, really well. Do you talk publicly about how big the community is?
Yeah, but we've got people registered is approaching like 300K, but active and engaged, and then people come back over time. It sort of varies a lot between like 30 to 60,000 a month kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Is there any pattern to like what drives people to re-engage? Like, is it market activity that, like, is that the
yeah.
markets are up, people want to trade? Is that the single factor model for users?
Markets are up or down, just some volatility.
Okay.
Yeah, they're back on.
It's actually really cool, because that's I think that's a bit of a special property for quant, right? It's like long volatility.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Another thing that I've enjoyed getting to know about you as we've talked is that you have like the craftsmanship sort of approach to everything you build. Like, it's very obvious when you're talking about your software that you really care about quality, which I love. I think that's just I feel like there's not enough of that in the world, especially when it comes to software. And I was curious, one of the things that I've myself been experiencing and have found like really thrilling is Gen AI for making software. So like all the Copilot and everything like that. And the tools that are there, and just the advancements. If you think about, just hosted development environments, like QuantConnect's a very, very early player in hosted, engineering and development and research environments. And I've always found it kind of interesting that isn't taking over everything. Google Docs for pick a technical field. And so I was hoping to get your opinion of like where you think we're headed from a creation of software. What is that going to look like in a year or 2 years? Which things are you like? Are you excited about all these new techniques, or are you skeptical? What do you think is coming for software engineering?
I think it'll always get better. So even what it is in the next year will be different to 5 years, right? It'll probably be everything in 5 years and nothing in a year, or only part of it in a year.
Yeah.
The limitations we see now are it's good at a small scope. It's like a junior engineer.
Yeah.
They can fix the file, but if that file has spider webs that go to 50 other files, it has no idea and it can't fix it.
Right.
And then you need like a senior engineer who understands. Have you heard Paul Graham's thing? He calls it constructing a crystal palace in your brain.
Yeah.
It's like you have all the classes constructed in this giant crystal palace, and then you open the door and you fix the door handle, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's the one little change. But yeah, they don't have that crystal palace yet. But they'll get there. It'll be years, but they'll get there.
So the Crystal Palace is a great image because it's this like giant, complex, three-dimensional object in your mind. Do you think it's that these AI agents are just like super linear? Like, is that why does it need to have more structure? Like, what do you think is the missing element that needs to come along to go from fixing or working on one class to creating something bigger?
I think AIs currently are faking understanding.
Hmm.
And I don't know if they have a true understanding, because when you put more and more context into their buffer, this has become less and less relevant, because it has their base training, and then they have the questions context that you feed into it. But the more context, it just becomes gibberish that comes out. Like the door handle becomes, doors are a common element of houses. Like,
right. Or the door handle like turns into a bird and flies away.
Fix the door.
It's like there's that Sora video of like, I think the prompt is something like archaeologists dusting off a plastic deck chair or something, which they do, but then the deck chair just like takes life and starts running around. Like something like that. It's just like it's a totally surreal, weird video that's fun to watch, but it's just fascinating. Like you said, it does feel like maybe it's in an uncanny valley where it is really good at faking, approximating, and then all of a sudden, chairs are coming to life and running around, kind of floating, defying the laws of physics.
Right. Yeah. If it was truly understanding that, it might like do a panorama of the guy dusting the deck chair, or zoom in to the fossil that he's revealing, or something about that topic.
Yeah.
But it just, like 2-3 frames in, or whatever it is, 30 seconds in, it just goes off the rails because it doesn't.
Yeah.
But in programming with complicated systems, you've got massive things to understand. Like,
yeah,
you have to understand this tiny detail over here, and that will trace through to why this interface needs to be here.
Right. Yeah, these like long dependency chains it's also, there's no training data for that. I mean, I guess there's like tons and tons of projects, but that understanding, there isn't, the equivalent of subtitles for understanding the structure of a project. It's really interesting. Are you looking forward to the day when machines can code, or are you not looking forward to the day? Like, what version of the future do you want to live in? Do you want to live in the future where the machine becomes amazing at it, or do you like the fact that humans have to explain things to computers still?
To be clear, if I was to put a bet, if I was to put $1,000 down somewhere, I'll put it on AI. I wouldn't bet against AI.
Yeah,
I think it's just time, and everything I talk about will be solved. They'll have summarize the lean code base by classes, and then I have another AI agent which is like summarize the blah 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 hierarchy, and we'll talk to each other and they'll figure something out, I'm sure. But the people, they'll be able to build algorithms, they'll be able to write algorithms. I still feel like the creative leaps that strategies where they have a fundamental basis in reality, that's going to be really difficult for machines to make, because they don't experience reality like we do. They read books, but we can see people buying ice cream and think, I should buy milk futures. I don't know. And they have to like pore over Wikipedia to try and pull out that gem, but we see crowds of people just going about their normal life, and we're collecting information differently. Mm. But I think that even with that layer and they're building algorithms, you'll still have the people explaining them what to build.
Yeah.
And that's great. And then they can get the code and customize it and tweak the strategy, or it might be slightly buggy or have edge cases the machine didn't think about, so they can go and fix the edge cases, that sort of thing.
What do you think of Gen AI as an interface for the algorithm? So, I was asking you about software engineering, so just to like sort of transition to strategy development and coding. Do you think it's a good interface for people to be developing trading strategies? Have you experimented with that at Quant Connect?
So we have a bot that we trained on all of our docs. And so
Okay.
from 2019 to like the end of beginning 2021, early 2022, we had 3 full-time people writing docs.
Okay.
Because the biggest complaint from the community was our docs were bad. So
Okay.
we put this massive project to go and rewrite them. And then OpenAI came out.
I don't know. Is that the best time or the worst time? Because on one hand, it's like, oh, I could have them docs, but now, you have something for them to read.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. The AI couldn't make the understanding leaps from the lean code base.
Yeah.
So the docs are summarizing it, providing the API, and
Okay.
put that into a training.
Yeah.
It now tell the Mia, the bot, like, write me a strategy that does this. And it goes and writes it, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And are customers using that and trying it, or what's the reaction?
They love it. The engagement like doubled overnight because
Really?
yeah, people get
That's so cool.
but they are like they're in the middle of a problem. Instead of getting frustrated or trying to find a solution in docs, they can just the AI gives them the answer. They keep going.
And the AI that you're talking about is an agent that's like a RAG system or something like that on your docs that you set up.
Yeah.
Versus because these docs are probably out in the open, so like ChatGPT probably has read them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an interesting. I think this is like a choice that a lot of companies have to think through right now. Do you build your own agent? Do you try to make your information available to one of the generalized systems or like OpenAI? And so I think it's like kind of clear in the beginning because of like the knowledge state and everything like that. You sort of had to do the version that you did first. But I'm just wondering, like, what do you think is the strategic direction for Quant Connect with this like AI layer over your docs and APIs? Is it a thing that you feel like you'll have to build, or is it almost like a byproduct of having good documentation? What a reward, by the way. Write good documentation and you get an AI.
Yeah. You don't ask easy questions, of course. But I have been thinking about this, thankfully. So for us, we decided that no matter what, more usage, whichever bot it is good. So we're completely fine with people scraping and crawling.
Yep.
In the app itself, we're able to do contextual things. Like, we know the code you're working on, the line that's broken.
Yeah.
There's a build error. We send all of that to the bot automatically. And so
awesome.
The question that you write to the bot is what's broken.
Yeah.
That's it. And the bot goes and scans the build error, finds the line of code, looks at the lines around the line of code, and says, hey, you're missing an argument from this constructor. This is documented here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's the really magical stuff in my own use. Like when it debugs your code, there's 2 things that have totally blown my mind. One is that like if you have a piece of code that's in context and then you give it the stack trace, it'll explain to you what's happening, which is really magical. The other thing that happened to me was early on. This is the thing that really made me kind of fall in love with coding with ChatGPT and started getting exciting about like what's the feature going to be like. I wanted to write a program that would summarize a video, and so I had to get the transcript of the video. So there's an API for that for YouTube. And then I wanted to experiment with, can you tell me like the key points? So one of the things that YouTube has is the view frequency for the different times in your video, which came out in, say, 2022. And I was asking ChatGPT, like, hey, write a method that will go and get the highlights, the most watched portions of the video or times of the video. And, very politely came back and said, oh, sorry, as of my knowledge state, there's no such way to do that. I can't, give you that information via an API. Would you like me to read all the comments and see what times are mentioned? And then we can use that as a measure of popularity.
Nice.
And I was just like so blown away because it was just lateral thinking. It's like I asked it to solve a problem in a certain way. And it was like, oh, silly human, that won't work, but would this be interesting? Which it was. So I feel like that partnership of, what you want to do, and figuring out how to do it, that was just like such a thrill to have that experience and kind of chasing that sense. So it sounds like, interestingly, a lot of people with Gen AI, the feature for the customer is not the strongest use case. The internal use cases are usually, in my little like exploration of this, writing code, summarizing documentation, handling customer requests, service requests, things like that. Those are the like really high ROI kind of obvious applications. But for Quant Connect, actually, it's because your product is for making code, right? You have a lot of customer facing features. So is this like a big active area for you right now?
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into it about 6 months ago, and we're just sort of measuring, testing, and seeing how it goes at the moment.
Very cool.
We did do some internal projects as well that, but our mantra is make it all invisible. So make the magic invisible, so it just happens, and you don't. So like the only reason we don't the debugging by AI, I said it's like what's wrong with my code.
Yeah.
First version of that was every time you got a build error, it would ask the bot for you, and it would have a pop-up that said, "You should put this here." So there was no chat bot; it was just fix this. And, but that was really expensive.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So people didn't. Yeah,
that's really fascinating. So besides the expense, did customers like that? What I thought you were going to say was that it was like making your customers feel bad, but did customers like that sort of what would you call that? It's just sort of like I guess invisible. Did they like that approach?
I think so. So that was one example of invisible, and the other one would be like nobody in the team is good at writing lean release notes. So we made it's like a 200-line script. It connects to GitHub API. It pulls all the pull requests. It pulls all the issues, merge, blah, blah, blah. It does a summary on them, and then it writes a blog post and then publishes it to the WordPress API.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the other thing is just like mind-boggling is it's so easy to write these programs. Like these programs are like very easy to create. The selection on like the problem to work on, I think is really hard, but like I said, it's like 200 lines, and what a valuable thing. So yeah, what's your thinking on the cost? Because I mean, it is like very expensive at your scale, right? So like if you're doing something like writing the release notes and it costs 25 cents in platform fees, like right, that's a great deal. But if every compile here customers are trying is costing 25 cents, that's a different story. So do you think there's like a different pricing model for your customers, or are you just going to try to keep the pricing the same and budget, like what's your approach?
We have support plans, different tiers. So we do the best we can for free, and we call that bronze support, but we also have other higher tiers, and then there's a question limit baked into each. So,
cool.
And then a lot of the times, if the users if they need help, they ask for help, and if the bot can solve it for them, it'll save the human time solving it. And just make it free. So, there's no cost to that question that you asked to the bot. And so as a result, also our support burden is dropped like by half.
Right.
The bot can answer most questions quickly.
And the customer's probably happier, right? I mean, so because it feels like you're solving your own problem.
Right. So then like down the line, will people still be using code, or will it just all be Gen AI and the code level will just fade away?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's a kind of, I don't know either. The round trip effect of like, I read something, the AI edits it, I edit it, just feels very exciting. But I feel like that's like a local optimization compared to like the Crystal Palace you were talking about. I think there needs to be something like very different if you want the machine to somehow know and be maintaining the Crystal Palace, I think anyway. Yeah.
We have this layer on top of an algorithm that we call the algorithm framework. And it breaks into classes, concepts like universe selection, the signal creation, the execution.
Actually, sorry to interrupt, but I have to tell you a very cool thing that happened last night. A member of the Quantopian community wrote to me a couple of weeks ago saying, you have all of these all this material that's about like the theory, but the way that I like to learn, I like to do things, and I built a pair trading strategy on Quant Connect. Can I do a presentation of my pair trading strategy on Quant Connect? So he actually made like really great slides. So I know what you're talking about because one of his slides has all the elements of a Quant Connect strategy. Yeah, so I'll send you afterwards, but everybody should watch it. It's a really great, there's nothing better than having one of your users explain your platform. So I hope you watch it because I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. Everybody else should watch it because it was like a really clear, very practical introduction to a trading strategy. And I think pairs are like a really great place to start. So it was really well chosen. So sorry. I know I love your structure for the sort of like the meta structure of an algorithm because this user Benjamin did a great presentation on it.
Nice. So that framework, we have hundreds of these modules built, and I think the AIs are going to be good at piecing things together. Like if you say, "Give me the tech stocks, find pairs, build a balanced portfolio of longs and shorts, execute with limit orders when you can."
Well, I think it's like another technique that I heard is really effective is if you have a domain specific language and then you generate a training corpus with that DSL, then you're kind of creating a way for the machine to use its token stream to express these more structured ideas. So this is very random, but another thing I've been thinking about with AI is an analogy to laptop hardware. So years ago, like 20 years ago, when laptop or more, like 30 years ago, when laptops were really just emerging, IBM had this idea that they wanted to automate the manufacturing of laptops because it's a very intricate assembly, right? So you think how compact it is. And so they designed hardware that was could be assembled just top down. So like all components would be top down. Right? It's actually inverted. So they like flip the laptop over, but then they could pick and place components into the laptop. So if you configure your laptop, you wanted certain video cards, certain storage, et cetera, put it all together. So they did all of that because they wanted a robot to assemble the laptop. And what they found was it was so simple to assemble that like a human operator like 10x their output. It was actually cheaper having a robot put it together. So they just ended up doing manual assembly. And I think it's like inverted, but because you've made it so clear for humans to understand the structure and think in this framework, I think you're right. Like I think the machine's going to be able to pick up all that same structure and context and operate like a high level. So I'm like very optimistic for Gen AI for strategy development.
Cool. Yeah.
I think the one thing in the back of my mind is, will it just be too easy to iterate? Meaning, try too many things, fall into overfitting. You have to be careful.
Yeah, that's kind of on our yeah. I won't hint too much. There's a fun project with Gen AI coming.
Oh yeah. Oh, when can we talk about it? When can you tell everybody? Because you'll have to come back.
Yeah, give us till June.
June? Okay.
But your comment, like you're very bullish on Gen AI with strategies. I am too.
Yeah.
Not from first principles. I'm very bullish on it from a platform like Quant. If you tell a Gen AI, gather data, write a commission.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
With a trading strategy, plug it into your framework, iterate on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I very much agree with what you're saying, because I feel like you've essentially developed a language, right, for strategies, and you can teach an AI that language.
And iterating on that top 0.5%
Yeah.
is insanely fast. And we have APIs.
Yes.
We have like the data's all there, and there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
You just keep 2 lines of code and you get a brand new strategy. So
Right.
that's an AI superpower. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, that's exciting.
if you for sure use it, but it's like when I first used ChatGPT, I was like trying to write a complex secure tunnel config.
Okay.
These Linux secure tunnel configs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gibberish, and it's like all these encryption standards that I have no idea what they are. And it's like,
Yeah.
write me this config for this open source Linux package, and it came back with the config, plugged it in. I said it didn't work. This is the error message it gave me.
Yep.
I said, try this new config. It just kept going back and forth, and that concept applied to quantitative trading is super.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, similarly, it's just amazing that these agents have perfect recall, right? They've read everything. I mean, modulo hallucinations, but I think that's probably why reading code is going to be so important for Quant Connect users, right? Is there's always, for the foreseeable future anyway, you want to make sure that you're getting what you asked for.
Yeah.
Right.
What is it? Is it Auto Quant? No, Auto GPT, I think. Something, I forgot the name of the package, but it's like it has a functional goal, achieve this goal, and iterate till you get there.
Oh, interesting. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
So just concluding here, first of all, thank you so much. This has been really, really fun. And I love stories. So the story, of your career and Quant Connect is just a great story. I'm so glad that we got to talk about that. And I feel like your approach to business is very similar to like your approach to your life, what you did in the early days, which is makes for a great story. And I think there's a lot to learn. So I always like to ask, successful entrepreneurs like you, do you have any advice for people that are thinking about starting a business, or in your case, it's sort of special, like people maybe thinking of trying to run a prop firm, or, make trading into their full time. But, just generally people who are starting new things, new business endeavors. Do you have any advice?
Boy, so much. I think one thing that I underestimated was the help of an upward market. And maybe that sounds so basic, but you hear stories of Airbnb or Amazon or whatever they are, and everybody's, when they start out, they're thinking of their $1 billion venture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the pretext to the Amazon story is that e-commerce was growing 30 to 40% year over year for 20 years.
Right.
Anyone that started in 1997 would just be pulled along at 30% a year. And so if you happen to catch a market like that, try and catch a market like that. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
You can do your best you can starting a market in something that's growing at 10% a year, but you'll grow it, best case, a little more than 10% a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think that that's probably hard-earned wisdom because the world's so big, it always seems like you can grow in any situation, which is kind of true. But, I think having the current going in the right direction is important. If I can sneak in one more question, because I think that's really good advice.
Just to pull on that, I totally understand, and I agree. You can do anything. It's just some parts are much easier.
Right.
Yeah, you want to pick the easy part because they call it blue ocean or red field or
blue ocean, red ocean. Yeah, I think blue is the good one where there's nothing. Yeah,
there's nothing. It's all expansion and growth, and it's like Amazon e-commerce growing, and versus like legal services. How much has legal services grown in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
You'll only grow $1 billion business there if you're like killing other lawyers.
Right. The other thing that pops in my head when you're talking about it is 30% growth for e-commerce means the average is 30%. So if you're just average growing through, if you're below average, you're still growing at like 10%. So the way that I have tried to internalize it is because I actually think it's really important and kind of hard to internalize. Is it also translates to the return on your time. So you can work really hard in an industry that's shrinking, and yes, you might be able to pull something off and have a growing business, or you can work really hard in a growing industry and have higher growth. So I think it's like a great thing to think about. There's so much in advice to entrepreneurs about not being an outsider and bucking trends and everything like that. But I think understanding the market is really important. Yeah. So my last question sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think the only reason that Quant Connect is done okay, I wouldn't say that it's done like Amazon, we've done okay, is like the quant software market has grown like 3 or 4% a year for 15 years.
Yeah.
But cloud computing market is growing at like 12 or 13%.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of straddle both
with
software and cloud computing. And people are like, hedge funds are like, okay, maybe we can consider moving our software to the cloud.
Yeah.
And then Amazon, and I look at Quant Connect and look at others. And that's the only reason why we're growing. But I would struggle now. I don't know if the cloud computing industry is going to continue. Like if you're a startup today.
Yeah. So this is my question. Like when you look out there today, what do you think is an interesting market? Like if you're going to start another company, what would be an interesting market to start?
Boy, what the hard questions. I hate to give cliches, but AI has a lot of potential to it. But there'll probably be some vertical in AI.
Yeah.
I don't know what vertical is.
I think, what you were saying about Quant Connect and there's sort of like 2 industries involved. I think it's kind of interesting because, AI itself is, I think ChatGPT was literally the fastest growing consumer app ever. So there's like really amazing growth happening there. But finding the vertical, like some intersection, could be really interesting. And, from what you said, it sounds like AI in quant finance is even lifting your growth rate. So those intersections can be like really, really valuable. Anything else you want to tell us about Quant Connect or, anything you just want the people to know in closing here?
No, I just, it's been an honor to be working with you in the trenches for the last 12 years.
Likewise. Yeah, it's been a fun decade.
Appreciate.
Cool. Well, you'll be back because we got to hear from you in June for this new stealth feature that you're working on. And just thank you so much. It's been really fun to have you here today and to get to know you over the last 10 years.
Thank you, John. It's been great to be here. Thank you.